All right, let's take a look at target 37B, which deals with simplifying rational expressions. When we have types of numbers in the denominator that we don't want down there, like square roots or i's. So square roots, we've been doing those for a while. You just simply have to multiply by the square root of 2 because the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 makes 2. That's the kind of number we want in the denominator. That's okay. So then we end up with 3 times the square root of 2 over 2. Second example, well, let me just say this for a second. What if you had 3 over I or something like that, even 3 over 2I? We want to get the I out of there, so you can multiply by I over I because I squared stands for -1. So you'd end up getting 3I over 2I squared. Well, I squared is -1. So then essentially what that does then is that gives us 3I over 2 times -1 or -2. And then we don't leave negative symbols in the denominator, so we end up getting -3I over 2. And that's an acceptable answer. So i's we deal with by doing I times I, and then over here, if we have another radical situation separated by a minus sign, we've talked about how you actually have to multiply that by its conjugate or its opposite, so 6 plus the square root of 5. And so then I do that up here as well. And so then I'm going to have to do some distributive property, so 4 times 6 and then 4 times that, which then that gives me 24 plus 4 times the square root of 5 over, and then I have to do 6 minus the square root of 5 times 6 plus the square root of 5. Well, if you do some difference of squares type logic or thinking, you end up getting 36, and then the middle terms cancel, and then minus 5. And 36 minus 5 is 31. Or you could type those in your calculator. Make sure you use correct parentheses. You'll get 31. And there's your fraction answer. Second one, what happens if you have i's in the denominator? Well, you're going to use a complex conjugate. So you're going to multiply by 2 minus 10i. And up here, you're going to multiply by 2 minus 10i. And that's a situation where you're going to use distributive property again. So distribute. And you're going to get 2 times 3 is 6 minus 30i all over. And then again, if you type those in your calculator, you're going to see what the answer is. And you're going to get 104 as your solution. Again, that's knowing where the I button is, which is above the decimal point. So you just go parentheses 2 plus 10i, and then parentheses 2 minus 10i. Multiply those together, and it gives you 104. Okay? And so then what you do is you say, oh, I've got all evens here. So all of those numbers happen to divide by 2. So if we divide them by 2, we end up getting the reduced fraction parts. So if I divide this by 2, I get 3. Divide this by 2, I get 15. And divide this by 2, I get 52. So there's one acceptable answer. Sometimes they make you write it in what's called a plus bi form. So you have to divide that and divide that each by the denominator. So then you end up getting 3 over 52 minus 15 over 52i. And that's technically called a plus bi form. All right, then the ones with fractions, it's all about factoring. Do you know how to factor? Do you know how to rewrite? Yeah, I do. I divide these by 3 and I get x minus 2. I can factor this into x, and then obviously this is plus 6 and minus 2. And then you'll notice that the x minus 2 and the x minus 2 cancel, and you get 3 over x plus 6 is your final answer. Okay, same deal here. It's just got a lot of factoring. You better know your difference of squares. So x plus 2, x minus 2. Then this would be x plus 6, x plus 3. And then this would be x and x like that. Two numbers that multiply to 18 but add to -11. So that's going to be minus 6 and minus, it's 9 and 2. Minus 9 and minus 2. So that's 9 and 2. And then this is x here, and then 27. So it would be minus 3 or minus 9 and then plus 3. So there's a lot of quick factoring. And then you end up doing these cancel, minus 9s cancel, this minus 2 cancels with this one, and you're left with x plus 2 over x plus 6, and that's your final solution. So that's kind of how you work through all these different types of problems.